By mid April, the sun really begins to roast Mumbai. It's time to escape to the hills. What better place to beat the heat and soothe the soul than Uttarakhand, a little state nestled in the mountains and valleys of the Himalayas? So off we went to Dehradun. We had planned a 15-day itinerary that would take us through the rugged, towering mountains of Gadwal to the lush Cheer and Deodar forests of Kumaon. Our journey began in Dehradun. We are at Jolly Grant Airport in Dehradun, and this is day one of our slow travel trip to Uttarakhand. We drove 30 kilometers, passing through the very heavy city traffic, and finally we reached the only place that we wanted to see on this trip. Driving through the gates, we felt we had entered an oasis of peace. We were going to stay in the scientist hostel for 2 nights. This hostel was built around the 80s and has not really received the love and care that it deserves since then. But our rooms were spacious, they were clean, and their location was unbeatable. You'll soon see why. And this is what we are here for, the Forest Research Institute, Dehradun. This is a very old institution. It was founded in 1878 during the colonial rule by the British. At that time, it was known as the Forest School of Dehradun. This was later renamed in 1906 to become the Imperial Forest Research Institute. In 1929, this magnificent new building was built to house the Imperial Forest Research Institute, and it has been here ever since. Today, this is a National Heritage Site. There are two training institutes on this campus. The Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy for training IFS officers. That is the Indian Forest Service. And the other academy is for training state forest service officers. This Forester Memorial is in honor of all the forest officers and rangers who lost their lives while doing their duty. This 2000-acre complex is extremely well maintained. Among the thousands of trees here, there are 400 mango and lychee trees, which in summer are laden with fruit. Flowers bloom around every corner, and the ambient sound is the chirping of birds. So we spent a blissful evening strolling over these grounds. And when the birds started going home to roost, so did we. We returned to the hostel where a simple but delicious dinner was waiting for us. The next day, I got up so early that I think I beat the birds also. I didn't want to miss a minute of the early morning light. When I saw these from a distance, I was so thrilled. I thought they were cherries, but they turned out to be small figs, food for the birds.
So I'm really tempted to try one of these. So Let's go ahead and pick one. This one here. I didn't have any taste, but I probably ate an insect. So, bye bye, ficus. We are at the Botanical Gardens of the Forest Research Institute in Dehradun. This spans over 10 hectares and was set up by Mr. R.N. Parker, who was a British gentleman. There are about 400 species of trees over here, and some of them are exotic. Mr. Parker set up a seed exchange program with other botanical gardens around the world, and that is how these trees came to be here.
So we walked around the garden admiring all the trees here. But to be honest, for a lay person, it is very difficult to appreciate the unique qualities or the what is special about each tree. It would have been great to have a guide along, or at least a guidebook, or some information written on the trees themselves. While I couldn't identify the trees, I could identify something that looked like the precursor of the strawberry. We asked the Mali if we could eat it, and he said, "Yeah, go ahead and try." We were not allowed to visit the insectary of the FRI, but we were given permission to see the herbarium. Now, how many of you know what a herbarium is? I thought it would be some kind of greenhouse with all exotic herbs growing inside it, and I was so wrong. This is not what a herbarium is. It is actually a collection of dried plants. Clearly, I wasn't paying attention when all this was being taught in school. But anyway, a herbarium, how they build these collections is the plant is collected in situ. If it is a large plant, you collect just parts of it. If it is a small plant, sometimes you can get even the root along with you. Then after bringing it to the lab, it is pressed, dried and mounted on the archival paper in such a way that all the major parts of the plant are visible, like the front of the leaf, the back of the leaf. If there is a flower, major parts of the flower. If you've got the root, they stick the root also over there. And after all this, it is identified, it is labeled, and in the labeling you need many things. Apart from the plant identification, you also need where it was collected, when it was collected, by whom it was collected. Nowadays they add the GPS coordinates also. You also have to record the soil in which it was collected, like what kind of soil was it, and you must record the other plants that were growing around this particular specimen. And then what is all this vast collection of plant specimens used for? It is used by researchers, it is used by ecologists. You can study the distribution of plants by studying these samples. Then it is also used by climate change, those who study climate change. So it has a lot of application, and maintaining a herbarium is a very important part of the study of natural history. The herbarium in the Forest Research Institute has around 330,000 specimens, which was pretty impressive. The largest herbarium in the world is in Kew Gardens in London. It has around 8.5 million specimens, and this covers almost 95% of all the plants known to man. In India, the largest herbarium is the one maintained by the Botanical Survey of India. It is in Calcutta, and it is known as the Central National Herbarium. There was this young officer called Manu who showed us around the herbarium of the Forest Research Institute. She gave us she gave us a very good tour. she showed us some very old specimens. The oldest one was dating from 1807. This was a wild rose species collected by some English person. And she also gave us this interesting information that most of the plant species in India have been documented. So everything is there on record somewhere. But new species are still being found in the forest of Northeast India. So now let's go see it for ourselves. Let's take the tour with Manu.
So it is the second biggest herbarium subcontinent of India, and when we talk about the forestry, you can consider it as the largest, established in 1901, and it is based on the Bentham and Hooker classification. They have given that classification. The commonly basically made from this fruit, and the speciality of this fruit is this is the largest fruit in the angiosperm. So it will take fruiting after the 100 year. Vegetative period is quite large, and this is like it's one leaf 1 year.
What is this?
It's broken right now, but it can be like meters. Yes.
Northeast of India.
Yes, this is the Nepenthes. This is a picture insectivorous plant which feeds on the insects, and this basically you can find in the northeast area because the deficiency of the nitrogen is very much in that.
And this is how they store the records of nearly 330,000 plant specimens.
नाग केसर का नाम सुना होगा आपने. तो कभी भी आप देखेंगे फर्स्टली सबसे पहले विल फाइंड द प्लेट्स एंड द लिटरेचर. तो लिटरेचर इज सिंपली द नोट्स दे हैव प्लेस्ड दैट टाइम. इट्स काइंड ऑफ गूगल यू कैन कंपेयर नाउडेज because we don't have that place all the literature yes regarding this particular species. So this is all handmade. This has all been written by the Britishers that time, all the information. This is, and this is also very important for people. It can be considered as a painting, but as for botanists or forestry research scholars, this is very scientific and very important because it's give you the clear vision of the plants, the ovary position, the anthers. So because they features considered as how they evolve, and like numerous anther represent the oldest family.
These are botanical illustrations. A botanical illustration is different from artistic drawings. Each physical aspect of the plant, its leaves, its flowers, fruits, seeds, everything has to be recorded and in all the stages. So, and with very high accuracy also. So, it is not just art, it is also a piece of science. Here in the corner, you see this name Ganga Singh. This was Thakur Ganga Singh. He was sent to England by the British for training in the art of botanical illustration. Ganga Singh then worked for 30 years as botanical illustrator at FRI. In recognition of his service to science, the British had conferred upon him the title of Rai Bahadur. Rai Bahadur Ganga Singh and his student P. Sharma, they produced nearly 200 watercolors and ink and wash sketches of plant subjects which are in the collection of FRI today. Thoroughly impressed by the herbarium, we wander over to the Bambusatum and the Arboretum. The Bambusatum is a collection of bamboo species from all over the world, and the Arboretum is this mini jungle made up of very, very tall trees. But here again, we are lost because we don't understand much and we cannot identify anything. I wish Manu had come with us to explain to us the finer points of this living tree collection. And finally, let's walk through this magnificent building itself. It rests on a plinth of 2.5 hectares. It has this series of arched passageways and interlinked courtyards. These surround the working spaces, that is, the laboratories, the offices, and the 6 museums that are housed here. This beautiful building has attracted the attention of many filmmakers, and whenever they need to shoot the scene of some fancy college, they come and shoot here. This is our last day in the Forest Research Institute. Tomorrow morning, we leave for Rudraprayag. As we wait for the cab to arrive, we discover the musical talents of the hostel's manager, Sher Bahadur Chhatri, and we get this musical farewell.
मैं रोज लब पे नहीं आह तकता हूँ मैं रोज एक नए गम की राह तकता हूँ किसी खुशी का मेरे दिल को इंतजार नहीं मेरे नसीब है तो तेरा प्यार